say I would like all the participants to listen to his very aspects on different aspects he has worked. So he will be talking on watershed management and climate change. Uh, uh, I'll request Dr. Akhilesh Kumarji to start his topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Atre, Professor Atre, for your good words. Are you hearing me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I welcome all the participants, and I will be discussing about watershed management, and climate change. Now, the first question comes to my mind: why watershed management at all? Now, as we know, that with the increase in population, our availability of cultivated area per capita, per person is decreasing. For example, when our population was 300 million around, the cultivated area was to the tune of 140 million hectares. Presently, the total population is more than 1300 million, and cultivated area remains almost the same. Rather, it is decreasing. So the availability of cultivated area per person is decreasing very significantly with the increase in population. This is one thing. Secondly, as this availability decreases, the unscientific, indiscriminate over-exploitation of our natural resources like land and water also increases. And this increase is when there is no adequate management support system, the problem gets aggravated. So it's a very serious degradation of these natural resources. At the same time, the lack of general awareness and the general concern of public towards these natural resources, the situation further becomes serious. Now, as far as management of these resources is concerned, it requires a very comprehensive approach considering large number of variables related to soil, climate, land, topography, and other human activities. Because piecemeal management of land and water resources will not help. There has to be a comprehensive approach. Because land is everywhere, problem is everywhere. So this comprehensive approach has to be there. And for that purpose, the management of these resources, considering watershed as the control unit, has been accepted as a noble approach worldwide. So from there, the watershed management has come up. The term watershed introduced in 1920 and was used for water pairing areas. Water parting boundaries. Now, though we know, just refresh your knowledge, the watershed is nothing but that land area which drains or contributes runoff to a common outlet. It's defined as a geohydrological unit draining to a point by a system of drains. All lands on earth, all parts of one or other watershed. And therefore, watershed is thus the land and water area which contributes runoff to a common point. This is a simple definition. Other definition says, a watershed is an area of land and water bounded by a drainage within which the surface runoff collects and flows out of the watershed through a common outlet. सुनील जी हटेगा नहीं क्या? बता दो. Okay. ठीक है. Okay. Now there are so many classifications. Water can be according to size, according to shape, according to use. So just for example, I have given, it can be of different sizes depending upon our capability. We can select a watershed of size. Now, the catchment area terms. This is just a synonymous to watershed, but otherwise, technically, there is a little difference. That catchment area term is used in reference to a particular water body. And it is said that the water collecting area, catchment area is nothing but the water collecting area, that is the area from which water flows out into a river or in a water body like river, reservoir, lake, etc. So whenever we talk in relation to a water body, for example, catchment of a particular reservoir, catchment of a particular river, then it has to be a catchment. Otherwise, the watershed, from that side, if you speak, that is a watershed, but if you connect it with water body, it becomes a catchment. Now, come to watershed management. Now, watershed management, again, so many definitions, but all the definitions, the common point remains same. The watershed management implies an effective conservation of soil and water resources for sustainable production with minimum non-point pollution. It involves management of land surface and vegetation so as to conserve the soil and water for immediate and long-term benefits to the farmers, community, and society as a whole. Now, this has to be underlined, long-term benefits. These terms are very important because whenever we talk about sustainability of system has to be ensured. For that purpose, the system has to work on a long-term benefit for the benefit of community and society. Because ultimately, whatever we are doing it for the society. Society should get benefited. So watershed management also targets the benefit of the society as a whole while keeping the natural system intact without any degradation on a long-term basis. Now, second definition again we can read. Am I clear to you? My pronunciation is okay? Okay?
Yes,
okay.
sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
Otherwise, I can go down further.
No problem, sir. You can take your time.
Watershed management is an adaptive, comprehensive, integrated, multi-resource management planning process that seeks to balance healthy ecological, economic, and cultural social conditions within a watershed. Watershed management serves to integrate planning for land and water. It takes into account both ground and surface water flow, recognizing and planning for the interaction of water, plants, animals, and human land use. So these terms, every term becomes very important. This has to be. Now, next, again, another definition says, watershed management can be defined as the design, construction, operation, and management of landscape and associated plant and animal communities to benefit both humanity and nature. Humanity and nature, society and nature. The main aim of watershed management is to conserve soil, plant, and water resources of a catchment while benefiting humanity. Same thing again, it combines environmental, social, and economic concerns with approaches to treat forest, land, rangelands, agricultural lands, urban areas in an integrated manner. So all these purposes have to be integrated. All these purposes should get benefited. Again, another definition we can go through. Watershed management is planning, guiding, and organizing land use so that desired goods and services are produced from a watershed without harming soil productivity and water resources. Goods and services produced from watersheds include food, forage for livestock, wildlife, wood and other forest products, outdoor recreation, wildlife habitat, scenic beauty, and water. Essential to watershed management is the recognition that production must be accompanied with environment protection. Actually, this is very important. Everything converges there. That while we should take the maximum benefit of our natural resources, we should subject them to maximize level of production. But at the same time, we have to ensure that our environmental protection, environmental and these resources should not get degraded. They should be managed in such a way so that the quality and quantity of these resources is managed, because we have to take benefit on long-term basis. It is not that we are taking benefit for a certain, then we will leave it. Benefits will be taken for a long term, and on long-term basis, we have to see all this. So this is very important. Now, again, a definition, just go through last. Watershed management is defined as any human action aimed at ensuring the sustainable use of natural resources in a watershed, attempts to provide solutions to these threats. Watershed management considers the management and conservation of all available natural resources in a comprehensive way. In a comprehensive way, I repeat it. It provides a framework for integrating different land uses and livelihood systems, forestry, pasture, agriculture, using water as the entry point in the design of intervention. Actually, water remains entry point. It remains a central point in case of watershed management. So all the definitions we have gone through, some of the definitions. Now, we just see that these definitions converge to a point where we can summarize that by going through above definitions and objectives, in nutshell, it can be said that the watershed management basically aims to preserve our natural resources like soil, water, plant, animal, and climate. We call them as Jal, Jameen, Jangal, Jantu, Jalvayu, 5J. Jal, Jameen, Jangal, Jantu, Jalvayu. These 5 components have to be protected through watershed management while putting them to maximum use on long-term basis. This term is very important. Long-term basis, sustainability without harming, and what we have to see, Jal, Jameen, Jangal, Jantu, Jalvayu, 5J. Now, it means that these natural resources, while being used, it is to be ensured that sustainability of this entire natural system is not compromised, is not jeopardized. So this remains the focal point of watershed management. Okay. Now, otherwise also we see that okay, let us go through. Now, according to me, just this is my concept. May not be available in literature. What I feel is that watershed management is basically the management of water which is being shed by an area. That is watershed. So watershed management, first you have to manage the water which is coming out from an area, that is watershed. We already have seen that watershed is a divide. It is surrounded by the boundaries, ridge lines, so that water from this side cannot go to other side. From other side out, it cannot come in. So this is an isolated area already available in the nature, and this is just a natural unit. Now, the water is to be managed both quantitatively and qualitatively. This is important. While we talk of management has to be done not only in quantitative terms, but in qualitative terms also. And the first line which I say, management of water. Now, management of water quantity says that wherever water is in deficit, we will intervene, we will apply all sorts of mechanisms, all sorts of practices which will help us to conserve water. Where water is it, we are in deficit areas. Now, at the same time, when we are working in water access area, we have to ensure that the excess water is disposed of safely from our water set. So we have to manage water quantitatively and qualitatively. Quality means that the water which is coming from the water set should be as clean as possible, should be free from sediments, it should be free from all toxic elements, it should be as clean as possible. So if we are able to do that much of regulation, where we are able to control the quantity as per our own need and in quality as of our demand. So if that can be done, then if this regulation is achieved, that control is achieved, when you are in position to regulate water in such a way so that we are able to fulfill our needs, then other components of the watershed development or watershed management, we call it, can be taken up so that we get maximum benefit from our watershed management program. But basically, in my opinion, it remains the management of water. And naturally, water and soil both are integral part. When you are managing water, naturally soil will also be managed. So that has to be seen. Okay. In brief again, the objectives of watershed management: achieving maximized level of production of food, fodder, fuel. Very important. Erosion control, prevention of soil degradation, conservation of soil and water. Okay. Pollution control, flood and drought control, checking sedimentation of water bodies. These are very important area, and these are very big area, big objectives. Flood control, drought control, sediment. Naturally, by checking sedimentation, it helps in flood control, drought control, and by other means also. Sustainability of the system. Over exploitation of the resources have to be minimized. Recharge of groundwater. This is one of the, again, very important objective of the watershed management. Wildlife preservation, employment generation through industrial development, dairy. See, watershed management includes so many components. And in my opinion, as a person of soil and water conservation, as a student of soil and water conservation, I can say, I feel that for our nation, or for that sake, any nation, if watershed management is adopted in a proper sense, that will make the nation develop. That will make the nation prosperous, because so many components will automatically be covered. And once these components are managed, naturally there has to be a all-around well-being of the humanity. This is, for me, watershed management is one of the very important area which cannot be overlooked. Later or sooner, particularly nowadays, when we are not able to get proper water to drink, when we are not able proper air to breathe, when our soil is degrading, soil quality is degrading very rapidly, we talk of soil health. So all these components can be taken care of by simply adopting proper watershed management techniques. Okay. Now, quality, quantity, I have already elaborated. Quality, quantity component, because so far what happens, unfortunately for us, we are struggling with quantity. We are unable to manage, we are unable to provide water and other things in desired quantity. So we are struggling with quantity only, and in these circumstances, we are very less concerned about quality, particularly water. at the national level, if you see, we are struggling with quantity only. We are not able to provide water in sufficient quantity to many areas, either for irrigation or for drinking purpose, for any other purpose. So when we are struggling with quantity, we are not able to give concern or give our focus on quality component, and we are ignoring quality of these resources very badly, which is not good. So management has to be done both in qualitative terms and quantitative terms. This is very, very important. Now, naturally, watershed management has to be multidisciplinary. Once that water regulation is obtained, and we have to then follow integrated approach with proper coordination among participating departments, because any activity can be taken up in the watershed to develop it, to help the population of the watershed to develop that area. Any activity, you name it, can be taken up, and for that purpose, the experts from different departments will get involved. And once the expert of different departments, be animal husbandry, be of marketing, be of health department, be of horticulture, any department you name it, those persons will get involved as per the requirement of that area and requirement of the people of that area. But one thing is to be ensured, that there has to be a proper coordination between these departments, so that the people are able to get maximum benefit out of the program. Unfortunately for us, we lack in coordination. Every department will work independently, but that approach is totally faulty, and that will not lead to the desired result. For example, if your water is not available in the area, then planting tree will not help you. Animal husbandry will not help you, because water has to be provided to them. Water remains a key input. So first of all, you have control over the water. You ensure that water is available. Then you take up any activity which you like, depending upon the requirements and the availability of the requirement of the area, as well as requirement of the people of the area. So for that purpose, proper coordination must be there to get maximum benefit out of the entire program. This is very important. And one thing about water is, I would like to say, of course we know it, that water has to be provided on site. For example, other inputs to agriculture or to population can be transported. Seed can be transported, machinery can be transported, labor can be transported, other inputs to agriculture can be transported from one place to another, but not the water. If you want to transport water for irrigation from Mumbai to Pune or from any other area, that simply will be a foolish approach. Water has to be provided. The availability of the water has to be ensured on site. So for that purpose, the management of water has to be done locally. Now, some point to highlight. Watershed being a laboratory of various hydrological processes like rainfall runoff, sediment outflow, or rainfall runoff, sediment outflow, infiltration, evaporation, etc. is highly dynamic in nature. Watershed remains a very dynamic unit, particularly large watersheds. They are highly dynamic in nature. The basic input to various hydrological processes is rainfall. The input to various hydrological processes remains rainfall, which is highly dependent on climatic conditions. Rather, rainfall is one of the important climatic parameters. Now, with the shift in climatic conditions, the temporal as well as spatial distribution of rainfall gets changed, which eventually leads to change of entire behavior of watershed system towards these hydrological processes. Because rainfall remains key input, rainfall is a natural input. So if there is any shift in climate, the pattern of rainfall gets disturbed temporarily and spatially. And once this pattern gets disturbed, the entire behavior of the watershed will get changed, will get disturbed. So that is very important. That is the connectivity between climate and watershed. Climatic conditions will directly have their impact on watershed processes, watershed management. Now, in case of rainfall, apart from total amount, we all know it. In case of rainfall, it's not only amount of the rainfall, which is important, but its distribution is very important. Sometimes distribution becomes very important, more important than even the total rainfall. For example, in India, we have approximately 120 centimeter of rainfall annually, average, but this is not uniformly distributed time-wise or space-wise. If there is any mechanism which can control the distribution of rainfall, or if I say like in lighter vein, this 120 centimeter of rainfall, if it is distributed around the year, that is 10 centimeter rainfall every month, 5 centimeter of rainfall every 15th and 30th of a month, there is no problem. There will not be any problem. There is no need for watershed management. There is no need for water harvesting. There is no need for anything because water is evenly distributed. But that is not simply the case. With this much of rainfall, and I tell you further, we are a very fortunate country. This is a unique situation for India that maybe there is no other country of India's size in the world which gets this much of rainfall. So we are getting sufficient rainfall. The total rainwater we are getting, it becomes to the tune of almost 400 million hectare meter. And that much of volume of water is sufficient enough to fulfill our all needs, be it agricultural demand, industrial demand, domestic demand. But see, the problems are everywhere. Most of the areas now facing water problem, water availability problem. The areas which are having very high rainfall, those areas also face water scarcity in non-rainfall days. So, because of this uneven distribution, the management of water becomes very, very important. And watershed management is an attempt or is an approach to that direction. Nowadays, the prediction of rainfall have become quite accurate because of the advancement in computational technology. The predictions are quite accurate. Prediction means when rainfall is likely to be, but we don't have any other control over it. How much rainfall has to be there, we are not able to. We can predict that the rainfall is going to come on this Sunday. That's all. But how much it will come, that is again, still we are not able to control it. Now, erratic change in a rainfall distribution pattern make the watershed management program very demanding and very challenging. Naturally, as the distribution pattern disturbs, more and more problems will be faced, and the watershed management program will be more demanding and more challenging. There will be more challenges in watershed management program with the change in distribution pattern. This is but natural. Now, in dynamic system, we already know, as I said, that watershed systems are dynamic, particularly large watershed. Dynamic system simply says that in a dynamic system, the output from the system at any time is not dependent only the input to the system at that time, but it depends upon previous inputs and outputs. So this is very important. And these processes are guided by inbuilt memory of the system. And with the changing input patterns, rainfall, with the changing pattern, with the change in climate, the input pattern changes, and the changes, the hydrologic conditions of the watershed change and the entire process gets affected. This is very important. So all our modeling, which we are doing it for either rainfall runoff modeling, runoff sediment modeling, or any other hydrologic modeling, that modeling will be applicable only when the distribution remains same. If distribution gets affected, then that modeling may not work. That is happening in so many places. So this is important because the things change with the change in climate, with the change in rainfall distribution, things get changed and the entire process and outcomes get changed. Now, would you like to discuss anything so far? Hello?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Now, these are general things, but general things are so important that we cannot ignore them. You have to focus, and that is why. Now, let us come to weather and climate. What weather and climate is? Now, weather is a combination of current meteorological components, that is temperature, wind direction, speed, amount, type of precipitation, sunshine, hours, etc. Now, the weather is defining a certain period up to several days. The weather at a place is nothing but these conditions, wind direction, speed, for up to a short period, or only a short period, maybe up to several days. While climate generally, it is generally a prevailing weather conditions of a region throughout the year, averaged over a series of years. So there is a difference between climate is a local phenomenon. This is a time space within a time frame. But climate is a prevailing weather conditions of a region throughout year, averaged over a series of years, long-term average. This is climate. Next definition again. The average course or conditions of the weather at a place, usually over a period of years, as exhibited by temperature, wind velocity, and precipitation. Climate. Next. Climate is the long-term average of weather. Weather conditions averaged is nothing but climate. Weather is a local phenomenon. And when weather conditions are averaged over a long time, normally we take long time in 30 years. So 30 years average of weather conditions describe climate at a place. Some of the meteorological variables that are commonly measured are temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure, wind, and precipitation. So these are important parameters which describe climate. Now, variables that determine climate. Now, over historical time span, there are a number of variables that determine climate, which include its location of the area, which is described in terms of latitude, longitude, and altitude, proportion of land to water areas, and then proximity to oceans and mountains. So these are some of the variables which determine climate. But all these variables change over a very long period, remain almost constant because location is not going to change, land and water. So these variables can be taken that these variables do not change or change over a very long period. But some other dynamic variables which determine climate are the density and type of vegetation, which affect solar heat absorption, water retention, and rainfall on a regional level. These are the variables which are dynamic, which change rapidly and affect climatic conditions at a place. Now, alterations in the quantity of atmospheric greenhouse gases determine the amount of solar energy retained by the planet, leading to a global warming or global cooling. So, greenhouse gases, then an important parameter which determine climatic conditions, global warming basically. The variables which determine climate are numerous, many variables are there, and their interactions are very complex in nature. So these are. Now, climate variability, one term is there, climate variability. What is that? Now, climate variability is the term to describe variations in the mean state and other characteristics of climate on spatial and temporal scales beyond that of individual weather events. Basically, it reflects climatic inconsistencies and anomalies. Climatic variability basically is nothing but the climatic inconsistency and anomalies. Okay. And this variability can be of two types. Random variability, maybe periodic variability. Random variability becomes when there is no trend, it is haphazard, randomly it varies, and it cannot be modeled. So it is simply called a noise. So this variability is random, which is random without any definite pattern. And second one is periodic variability, which has got some pattern, normally a cyclic movement. So variability can be of two types, random variability, periodic. Periodic variability has got trends, so we are able to assess what is going to come. But random variability, all of a sudden, without any pattern, it is of random nature. Now, let us come to climatic change. Climate change. Now, climate change is the variation in global or regional climates over time. It reflects changes in the variability or average state of the atmosphere over time scale, ranging from decades to millions of years. It's a long-term process. It doesn't happen day-to-day basis. It may take decades or a long time to take change. Now, these changes can be caused by the following. It may be internal process of the earth, shift of tectonic energy. Now, external forces may be, for example, variation in sunlight, or maybe human activities. So, climate change occurs over a long period of time because of these processes. Now, okay, where I have come, watershed. Okay, now again, let us come to watershed again. This is my own, just now stages. They can see this is very important. How to do it? Watershed management, how to do it, and what are the steps, and what is the importance of these steps. I will just describe in brief. Then we will open up the discussion, the session for discussion. Or if you want to discuss, you can anytime you raise your voice and then discuss. Now, in order to have a practical solution to our problems, it is necessary to go through following steps for a full-scale watershed management program in a logical manner. See, watershed management has to be a very scientific approach. It is not that anybody come and do watershed management. And unfortunately, I have seen, I should not say of course here, that people, without knowing the basic principles of watershed management, basic steps involved in the watershed management, go for watershed management, those watershed management programs may not succeed. And so what should be the logical way, logical approach? Let us say, first is delineation or demarcation of watershed boundaries. This is very important. If watershed boundaries are already defined, so we have to locate, we have to identify watershed, delineate a watershed boundaries. Watershed boundaries are which lines? So there are, we will discuss again in next slides. Then resource mapping and problem identification. Design or formulation of program based on the problems and their causes. Next is implementation of program in the field, execution and monitoring, evaluation of program, and then documentation and information dissemination. So these 6-7 steps are basically involved in any of the watershed management programs, and each and every step is very important, because without the success of Delineation, you cannot go for resource mapping. Without proper resource mapping, you cannot design the program, you cannot formulate the program. Formulate means properly formulate. Without proper formulation of the program, naturally implementation can never be effective. And without effective implementation, naturally, there is no point in evaluation because the program will not be a success if it is not properly formulated and implemented. And documentation, of course. Let us discuss these things in short, brief. Delineation, we already know. It refers to the location. We have to locate boundary, watershed boundaries, boundary lines on a topographic map using information from contour lines. Naturally, the topographic maps are used, and based on the contour lines, we have to locate watershed boundary. So this is a tedious exercise, but it has to be done. And has to be done very accurately. Nowadays, softwares are also available. We can use those software, digital elevation map, ArcGIS, etc., etc. So that otherwise, it can be done manually also from a contour map. Now, resource mapping and problem identification. See, once watershed is delineated, a baseline survey is to be conducted to know the status of various resources, to assess requirement of the area, requirement of the public, and availability of the resources in the area. Any type of resources, whether it's a financial resources, human resources, or other resources. We have to map those resources. This will also include problem identification of the area. What are the problems being faced in the area? We have to identify, and we have to diagnose the regions which are responsible for these problems, and then we have to try the treatments accordingly. So these are very important. The baseline survey becomes very important because baseline survey will provide you the existing status of an area, which may be required at a later stage. When you want to check the effectiveness of your program, when you want to compare pre-implementation status and post-implementation status of an area, the baseline information will be very important. Secondly, through baseline information, you will come to know various requirements and availability of the resources, requirement of the public, and from there you will identify problems of the area. What are the problems existing in this area? Whether this area is water deficient or water sufficient, whether the erosion problem, any type of problem. And we have to then diagnose the regions which are responsible for this problem. See, this I used to say that for any problem, there are set, this is not there that if high erosion is high, then only this problem will be there. High rate of erosion may be because of several reasons. Maybe high rainfall, maybe steep slope, maybe faulty agricultural practices, maybe wrong policies, maybe our. So there are so many reasons which may be responsible for a single problem. So we have to identify the problem. Just I used to say that, for example, if a person is suffering from fever and if he goes to a doctor, by just listening fever problem, doctor cannot recommend a treatment or should not recommend a treatment. The fever, the reason for the fever has to be analyzed, whether it is a typhoid, whether it is a malaria, whether it is a viral fever, or any other type of fever. And depending upon the type of fever, the treatment has to be given. Then only it will be effective, otherwise it will create other side effects. It will harm the person. Similarly, here you have to identify the problem of the area. Area means area problem as well as pupils problem. And you will find, and then try to find out the regions responsible. And once this is done, then you try to find out the interventions, the treatments which you are going to administer, which you are going to provide in your watershed management scheme. So this thing very important. Otherwise, nothing will come out. Haphazardly, if one approaches, nothing will come out. Everything has to be very scientific. Everything has to have some logic. Now, diagnosis of the problem is very important. Naturally, it will decide the nature of the whole program. The program formulation will depend upon, because what type of treatment you are going, the program will involve those treatments. Design or formulation of program. Now, based on the resources, requirements, problems, and their causes, a program is to be formulated. Watershed management program or location is specific. Every program, because at every program, at every location, for every problem, the treatment has to be of specific nature. So these programs, watershed programs, are location specific. The program which has been made for this watershed will not be applied, will not be applicable to other watershed until unless it's a very similar, it is of very similar nature. So programs are basically specific, location specific. For every watershed, a customized program has to be worked out depending upon its problem and other conditions. Now, interventions may be in combination or in isolation. Interventions may be in combination or isolation out of the following to make the program technically efficient, cost-effective, and socially acceptable. Very important, because see, treatment is there. You cannot pick up a treatment and just go through. For example, if a person goes to a doctor, then the best doctor is which treats the person efficiently, means in a time-bound manner, cost-effectively, and without creating other problems. Similarly, here you have to see that the program which you are giving, because program will involve a large intervention, large number of interventions, a big program. So that entire program has to be efficient technically, it has to be cost effective, as less costly as possible, and has to be socially acceptable. That is very important. User friendly. It has to be user friendly, socially acceptable. Otherwise, nobody will support you. So these things are, and these measures may include, it may be cultural measures, agronomical measures, engineering practices. These are general. So we have to come out with a package, complete treatment package, including these measures to make efficient, cost-effective, and socially. This is not a small, this is not a simple thing. This is a very typical type of thing. You have to apply all your wisdom and knowledge, common sense. Then only you'll come out with a complete package which will fulfill these conditions. Because so this package must be very balanced one, without any side effect, socially acceptable, because then only it can succeed, otherwise no. Now, implementation of program in the field. Once program is designed, it has to be executed in the field. During execution, proper monitoring has to be done so as to ensure that the program is being executed as per design and schedule to deliver maximum to deliver expected outcome. See, implementation as well. Once design is okay, design is good, effective design is there, then the same design has to go to the field for its implementation. So during implementation, we have to be careful that the program is being implemented as per our design with least deviation, and various activities of the project are going as per the schedule, time schedule, so that maximum expected outcomes are there from that project. So monitoring becomes very important. During implementation, monitoring becomes very important. And monitoring begins where planning ends. Once planning ends, then it becomes, then monitoring starts. You have to monitor each and every activity. And it is an inherent project activity. It is the continuous assessment of activities in the context of implementing schedule and use of inputs. Everything has to be monitored then. It involves observing, measuring, and reporting. In monitoring, observations, measurement, and then reporting. These components are invariably involved in monitoring. So these components have to be applied. Proper monitoring is essential part of the successful implementation and operation of the project. Without monitoring, everything will go in waste. So monitoring has to be every activity is important. At every stage, one has to be very careful so that each and every activity is completed very effectively. Now, then let us come to evaluation. Now, evaluation of program planning stage in the evaluation. What happens in our country generally, once program is implemented, then we do not bother for its evaluation. We leave it as it is. So we do not know exactly what is the outcome from that program, whether it is succeeding, whether it is catering needs of the people as per the design or not. So evaluation is very poor. Rather, sometimes it is totally absent. So, but evaluation is very important. Evaluation. Now, here I would like to just normally, while we evaluate the program, normally I have seen that people do bother for benefit cost ratio. Benefit cost ratio. What are the benefits accrued from the project or are being accrued from the project, and what is the cost? And it should be more than one. Then they say the project is viable, otherwise no. During design, generally the government setup, they consider benefit cost ratio. Similarly here also in watershed program, watershed management programs, benefit cost ratio is all right, but the benefits coming out of a watershed management program may be tangible benefit, may be intangible benefit, direct benefits, indirect benefits. Sometimes indirect benefits are more important than direct benefits. For example, direct benefits, they come out if increasing food production, you can evaluate them in the terms of money. Increasing production, food, fodder, fuel, or anything. This can be counted or this can be evaluated in terms of money, monetary benefits. But other benefits like recharge of groundwater, making people happy, protecting environment, so many things, because evaluation has to be done socially as well as technically, economically, socially, and technically. All these components should be there. Economical evaluation is there. Okay, these are the direct benefits. Economically, these are the benefits. What are the social benefits? What was the conditions of the people earlier? What is now? So many indicators, so many parameters are there for that. And similarly for technical, what was the sediment outflow earlier? What is now? What was the water moisture retention? What is the water outflow? So all these technical components are there. So for this evaluation, we have to find out, or we have to identify indicators, economical indicators, technical indicators, and social indicators. And so social indicators, everything is very important. Social indicators are very important. For example, nowadays what is happening in the garb of development, we are totally ignoring our environment. our state of natural resources. Agriculture has become commercialized. We are trying to take as much as possible from our agriculture without bothering for its health, without bothering its quality. We are exploiting the money. So this is economical all right. But at the same time, with the economy, we should see technically, we should see socially. So these evaluations can be performed. Now, naturally, because we are all people connected to soil and water, so we know the importance of water. We know the importance of, now, so far, water is a priceless commodity. Its price depends upon the situation. The area where water is not available, they realize its cost. When the periods when we are getting water, sufficient water, we don't bother for it. But when we are lacking supply, we face every type of problem. Of course, nowadays in India, water industry is of billions of rupees. A water bottle of 1 liter cost 20 rupees. In Mumbai, last year, water was supplied through trains, through railway. So these things are coming up. Every city, Indian city is facing problem of water. Recently at one level also, we know that Cape Town, the government has declared day zero. They said, no, we are unable to supply any water. In India also, that situation is likely to come. So anyway, water problem we know, and the importance of water is of course. So this evaluation has to be done at several stages. Planning stage in the form of baseline. When we are collecting baseline data, then also evaluation has to be done. What is what? We have to see before implementation of the program. What is what? What are the basic status of various parameters? Because ultimately we will need, this may be in terms of photographs, it may be in terms of mathematical data or in any way. So planning stage evaluation has to be done. In the middle of implementation, short and medium term evaluation. While program is being implemented, in between, evaluation has to be done, whether we are going in right direction or not. So some sort of indication we will get that, okay, we are moving on right path. At the end of project, terminal evaluation, when project is completed, again we go for evaluation so that we will come to know the effect of the program. And soil conservation programs may not give its benefit all of a sudden after completion. It may take several years. So again, go for post-terminal evaluation after several years of project implementation. So there are so many stages of evaluation depending upon our requirement and resources. We go for evaluation, and evaluation must be very honest, very scientific, so that we are in position to know the exact outcome from that project. Now, here I will say that the indicators which are being selected, something is given, the indicator means, okay, indicators, there may be so many indicators. There is a large number of indicators. You can include any indicator you feel so. It may be anything. Socially, it can be that how many marriages, how much the expenditure in a marriage earlier, what is the expenditure now, what is the literacy rate, what is literacy. So there can be n number of indicators in terms of economy, in terms of society, in terms of technical indicators. So these indicators have to be unambiguous, must be consistent, should be specific as far as possible, and of course sensitive, and must be easy. Easy means should not be so difficult that their monitoring or their evaluation becomes very difficult. No, they should be easy to handle. So some of the properties of indicators so that you are not in problem. And here I would like to say, as a person connected to soil and water, I used to say, whenever I go to meetings, high-level meetings, I used to say, then why watershed management program is being put to BC ratio, benefit cost ratio. I simply say because benefits are so many. Direct benefit, indirect benefits are so many, they are difficult to evaluate. And the focus should be to implement, execute, to design, to monitor everything. These stages should be very effective. And once these stages are done efficiently and effectively, be sure that your program is going to, it will never fail. It will become very successful program and it will give fantastic result either in terms of direct benefit or in terms of indirect benefit. But the condition is that you have to pass through these stages very efficiently. And for that purpose, technical knowledge must be there and one has to work very hard. Okay. Now, location specific we already know, so need not to again repeat because every watershed is unique in physiography, ecology, climatic, water quality, land use, human culture. Therefore, generalized approach to watershed management programs is simply not, what is that? So every watershed has to be, every solution to watershed problem have to be of customized nature because their ecology, climate, water quality, land use, human culture, everything will be changing. Problems are changing, solutions will change. So every watershed program has to be its own. There is no need to copy watershed program from one to another. We have to design independently for each and every watershed. Okay. So this is about watershed, which I just deliberated in brief, but these components become very important. Now I will end my talk with the comment that we have to show concern. We have to create general awareness among common people, among masses, so that they show their concern towards conservation of these natural resources. If general public does not show their concern, then for any agency, it will be difficult to manage these resources on their own because these management of these resources need huge expenditure, huge manpower, huge infrastructure that simply may not be available. So public involvement is a must so that things do not go out of hand. We keep on playing with nature. Nature has got very good tolerance. Nature will keep on tolerating. But as we know, there is a limit for everything. Once we cross these limits, then nature will play with us. So let us do not go for that condition where nature plays with us, because nature's play are very serious, are of very serious nature. We will not be able to tolerate them, and there will be fatal consequences. So better late than never. We have to try these programs. We have to, anyway, we all know it. So here I will be changing. I will be stopping my presentation, and if there is need for any discussion, we may take it up.
Yes, sir. Participant can post their questions in the chat box. Thank you very much, sir. There are 2-3 questions. Shall I read one by one?
Sure.
Okay, sir. First question is from Dr. Pushpendra. What is the optimum size of watershed which is effectively managed in Bundelkhand plateau of MP, Madhya Pradesh?
Of course, it depends upon the natural local conditions and resources available. But to me, watershed more than 500 hectares watershed, please don't take. More than 500 hectares watershed may not be manageable that effectively, particularly in Bundelkhand region where water scarcity is there. So one can go, nothing is fixed. 500, but in general, I am saying that don't go for a watershed more than of 500 hectares.
Okay. There is a next question from Sangeeta Das ma'am. Sir, please clear the difference between watershed and catchment area again.
Watershed, simply, watershed, water is being shed. Water is being shed from that area. What is now catchment? A water body is there. That water body is catching water from a certain area. For example, a reservoir. Reservoir is catching water from a certain area. That becomes, if you are keeping reservoir in question, then it becomes catchment. But when you are standing in the catchment, you are saying, then you will say that this area is shedding water to this reservoir. Reservoir is catching, watershed is shedding that water. Both are synonymous. Both are synonymous, only difference is of concept.
Okay. Next question is, does post-terminal evaluation varies according to the type of structure?
Post-evaluation vary type of structure. Which structure?
Does terminal evaluation varies according to the type of structure?
Structure means soil conservation structure?
Yes.
Okay. See, structure as time passes. Normally what happens, suppose you have constructed some structure. Let us say there are check dams. Check dams have been constructed. Drop structures are constructed. Now, those check dams have to be taken care of properly. Otherwise, what will happen? These check dams themselves will get silted up, and their effectiveness will be lost. Drop structures. So these check dams are to be taken care of so that they work effectively. Now, if you are not doing it, then naturally they will affect your evaluation also. With time, evaluation will also, because their effectiveness is going down, so it will be reflected into your evaluation. But however, with time, the evaluation should not be changed, because we have decided certain parameters. We are observing those parameters with time. So those parameters remain same. Observation technique remains same. We have to just compare the status of those parameters with respect to time. What is happening? That way, you will come to know the effectiveness of program with time also. It may so happen that a particular management program which you put in, after some time, if you are finding that the program has become totally ineffective based on our evaluation, that means something wrong is going on into your watershed. Either your treatment structure you are talking about, the structure have become defunct, meaning practices in form of burning terraces or anything, they have become defunct and they need repair, maintenance. Otherwise, why evaluation should change? Otherwise, there will not be any comparison. Comparison has to be done with that.
Okay. Next question is from Ms. Pranali Netam. How we can do social evaluation?
Social evaluation, because why? See, today I am conducted a baseline survey in the area. Baseline survey means baseline information I am collecting. I am collecting technical information, economical information, and social information. Now, socially, let us see, today I collected from that population of the watershed, I collected that so many people are literate, so many people are graduate, so many people are having health problems, so many social indicators, so many kacha houses, so many pakka houses, so all these parameters which you find in that area, that these parameters are important to consider, indicator. On those indicators, after successful implementation of the program, terminal, medium, long term, whatever it is, you just again collect those parameters and see, is there any change? Economical status, These are the persons. These were the mortality rate earlier. This is now. These are the houses. Earlier it was kacha house. Now it has become pakka. So all sorts of parameters, social indicators, which you find important in that area. They have to be compared, and there should be improvement after implementation of the project. Now, how much improvement is there? That will decide the effectiveness of your program.
Okay. There is one last question, sir. What are the issues mainly kept in mind for planning watershed, which generally people done wrong?
Just would you like to please repeat?
What are the issues mainly kept in mind while planning watershed?
While planning watershed.
Yes.
What do you mean by planning watershed? What exactly you want to?
Okay, I will unmute. 1 second, sir.
Hello.
As Miss Pranali, you are unmuted. You can ask the question to sir.
Just you be specific.
Sir, I just want to know when we design the watershed or planning for any treatment in that area for soil and water conservation or any other treatment. So which issues we should keep in our mind so that we cannot be failure in future or after 35 years or
Okay, question is now clear. Okay, that's good. Now see, step by step, let us go. First, you have to go for benchmark survey, baseline survey. During baseline survey, you will come across with various problems of the area. Problems means it may be high eroding area. It may be suffering with a water availability very acutely. It may be a very low productivity. So there may be so many issues, so many problems. So during benchmark survey, you have to identify problems. You identify as many as problems of that area. Okay. Now let us say technically, erosion problems. High, heavy silt flow, outflow, high rate of sediment outflow from the area. Now you have to see, it is not that easy. You have to, after identifying the problem, you have to diagnose it. As a doctor, you have to put it medical test. You have to put it technical test. So that you come to know the reason why this heavy erosion is there, why this heavy outflow, silt outflow is there, why water deficit is there, why this area is receiving so much of rainfall, still water problem is there. That means you have to have some water storage facilities. Water conservation is required very badly. If high erosion rate is there, then identification of problem and its diagnosis. Diagnosis means reasons why this problem is there. And once reasons and why, well, problem and reasons are before you, then as a doctor of soil and water conservation, you decide treatment. And treatment, I suppose, doctor when you go to a doctor, what doctor says? If you are simply having a mild, let us say, mild cold, if you go to doctor will suggest, okay, please go there and take this preventive measure, take boiled water, warm water, and protect yourself from cold. This is one treatment. Second treatment, doctor says, okay, you go and writes 5-4 tablets, allopathic tablets. Okay, take it. Next doctor says, no, you go for this Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathic medicine. Okay. And another doctor, high level doctor says, no, you have to go for operation. You have to be operated. So treatment will, now the best doctor is who treats the problem with minimum cost, very efficiently and in time bound manner. Similarly, here you are the doctor of soil and water conservation. Just like you are supposed to be the specialist of soil and water conservation. You see the problem, right? Find the reasons, and then come out with a treatment package which fulfills these conditions.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Vaibhav,
Yes, sir.
I think Shashikant Maitre has
Yes.
raised his hand.
Yes, yes.
I have
Uh,
unmuted him. Shashikant, you
uh-huh.
can ask if you have any doubt.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening to all of them. This Akhilesh sir is very nice presentation. One concern is for Akhilesh sir. We are developing a lot of watershed in India with various program, but till date there is a gap between supply and demand side. Lot of watershed is development, but considering the local scenario, there is no ensure solution for cropping pattern. Uh, cropping pattern. So, what are the main uh, strategy to consider how there is a fulfillment of ensure the cropping pattern for year around the local watershed area?
See, your question is very valid. In our country, ours is a democratic country. है ना?
Yes, yes,
We cannot, so far, we cannot dictate farmers to go for a particular cropping pattern in any area.
yes,
We can suggest, we can recommend, but we cannot dictate. For example, in areas, there's a, for example, this area surrounding me, in this area, summer paddy is banned because it requires very high amount of, very large amount of water, which is normally groundwater. But farmers are going. So anyway, now your question was, first was, it was the gap between demand and supply of water.
yes, yes, yes. No,
Ah,
there is a gap all over India. Every watershed there is a supply. Demand is tremendously increasing
no,
and
no,
supply is limited.
what happened na? Watershed management program to me, of course I should say or not, I don't know. Watershed management programs so far are being adopted in a piecemeal manner, scattered manner, here and there, here and there.
Mhm.
No, see, and somehow the outcomes from watershed management program have not been of the extent as they should have been. Reasons may be any, I don't know, I don't want to. And as a result, the situation is becoming serious day by day. See, this is one thing. If doctor is giving treatment, patient is not improving, then it is the matter of thoughts for the doctor to think what is going wrong. Here also, it's a matter of thought for us that in spite of watershed management programs going on, why this problem is becoming serious day by day. So this has some thoughts are to be given, and we have to go for course correction because situation is really becoming very serious. For example, droughts and floods.
Yes,
The watershed management, the basic solution of all these problems is watershed management. Unless you go for effective watershed management or a comprehensive manner, in a comprehensive manner, the problem will never be solved. This thing is certain. And how effectively we are able to execute these programs on a very large scale, that is a matter to be seen. But the step or the solution, basic solution, main solution remains that we have to go for watershed management on a large scale and that too very effectively. Until this problem will never be solved.
Thank you, sir. I agree your opinion, but as per my understanding, last 25 years I am working in watershed development area, but till date there is some gap considering the climate context point of view. There is changes in pattern, rainfall pattern, and supply and demand. There is a increasing day by day gap is increasing. Greed and need. There is a difference between greed and need. So the understanding of these common peoples, a community, see, there is a behavior change. There must be need of behavior change. There is a balance of greed and need, but we should technically suggest some things. For example, For example, there is a use of water, surface water and groundwater, conjective use. In dry spell, we should promote the only conjective use of surface water.
Definitely. See,
Huh?
this thing is very important. Okay, one thing is there, when an area develops, water demand may go on increasing.
Yes.
May increase, no doubt. Water consumption increases with the development. That is one thing. Now, secondly, see, public awareness. Public awareness. Until you take public with you, so that they follow your advice, they follow your suggestions, recommendations, the things will not change. Only government sector, see, this is because everybody gets involved. Whether you are on farm, off farm, everybody. If somebody thinks that I am living in Mumbai, why I should bother for watershed management? Things are not like that. Because ultimately, watershed management is connected to climate, long term, watershed management. So many issues. Everyone is supposed to be connected with the watershed management. And involvement of each and everyone is very, very important. That's why I said in the beginning that public awareness is very important, so that each and every person shows concern towards conservation of these natural resources. Otherwise, things will go out of hand.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to invite another student of Dr. Akhilesh Kumar, sir, and one of the participant of this training program, Dr. Vijay Balsani, to propose vote of thanks.
Oh, Mr. Valsane. Good. I met him 3 years ago.
Vijay, sir.
Hello, I am
Yes.
audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, one and all. Myself, Dr. Vijay Balsane, Assistant Professor of Soil and Water Conservation, College of Agriculture, Nandurbar, proposing vote of thanks of today's session on watershed management and climate change.
Your video is not visible.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Now, Valsane, yeah, Valsane.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, I met you, sir. Okay, sir. Okay. First of all, I would like to propose heartily vote of thanks to today's distinguished speaker, respected Dr. Akhilesh Kumar, Professor Soil and Water Conservation, Govind Ballabh Pant University of Agriculture and Technology, Pantnagar, making excellent presentations and making this session interesting. Dr. Akhilesh Kumar had taught me during my master's degree at Pantnagar. I would like to express my gratitude to our Dr. S.D. Gorantiwar, PI, and Dr. M.G. Shinde, co-PI, CAST, CS, AWM, MPQ Rahuri, as well as Organizing Secretary Dr. A. Atre sir and Joint Organizing Secretary Dr. V.N. Barai sir, and all training coordinators, and as well as all trainee participants. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Valsane, for your nice words.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Come to Pantnagar. How you are, Mukund?
Yeah. I am fine, sir. Thank you. We could meet online, even though not physically. It was nice lecture, sir.
Okay, sir.
Now this thing online is going on. Even in a colony, we are not able to meet because of Corona. We are not meeting.
Yes.
Online only, which we can.
Yes, sir.
So hope you are doing well there.
Yeah.
I hope you all are doing well there.
We are good. We are good here, and we are conducting online classes and exams for our students, so that their time is not lost.
And all of you are attending the office in the university?
Yeah, we are attending for last more than a month. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, same thing here also. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Atre, final remarks, Dr. Atre?
Sir, thank you, sir, for your nice presentation and very say what you call clear cut, giving clear cut demarcation and clear cut views on different aspects of watershed development and management. Thank you from all here.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. With the
Okay, sir,
permission
thank
of
you.
today's speaker, Akhilesh Kumar sir, organizing secretary and co-convener, I declare this session is over. And shall I close the meeting, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Okay.
Thank you.